The night was heavy, the mansion wrapped in silence until the front door swung open. Jungkook stepped in, his black coat still dusted with rain, his expression carved from ice. His men immediately straightened, lining up with bowed heads. One of them hesitated to speak, his voice quivering. Boss, the shipment has been delayed. The port security. Jungkook didn't let him finish. He moved closer, his boots echoing sharply against the marble floor. His jaw tightened, his voice low but lethal. Delayed? Yes, boss, just by. Jungkook's hand shot out, gripping the man's collar. He leaned in close, his breath cold against the trembling guard's ear. You think my enemies wait politely while you fumble your duties? If you can't secure one simple shipment, then tell me why should I keep you alive? The man stuttered, I'll fix it, boss, I swear. Jungkook shoved him back, releasing him with disgust. His tone remained calm, but it carried the weight of that sentence. Fix it by tomorrow morning or don't bother breathing by then. The others stood stiff, fear radiating through the hall. Jungkook's eyes swept over them like blades, and with sharp gesture, he dismissed them. The tension didn't fade. When he entered the dining room, he sank into the head chair, removing his gloves with deliberate slowness. You sat quietly a few seats down, watching him in silence. The maids scurried about, carefully placing dishes on the long table. Not one dared to meet his eyes. When one maid's hand shook and a fork clattered onto the floor, the sharp clang echoed like thunder. She froze instantly. Jungkook lifted his gaze, his voice flat yet menacing. Pick it up. The maid bent quickly, snatching the fork with trembling hands. She stammered, Forgive me, master, it slipped. Jungkook's stare pinned her in place. If your heads are this weak, perhaps I should find someone with steadier ones. The maid dropped into a bow so deep her forehead almost touched the floor. Please forgive me, it won't happen again. He let the silence stretch, letting her drown in her own panic before turning his gaze back to his plate. See that it doesn't. This is my house, not a circus. The maid backed away quickly, nearly tripping over herself. The others moved like shadows, barely breathing. You lowered your eyes to your food, your appetite gone. Luxury gleamed all around you, golden candlesticks, crystal glasses, but none of it felt like comfort, only coldness. Later that night, you sat by the window of your room, knees drawn to your chest. The mansion glittered in wealth, but you felt like a prisoner behind invisible bars. You whispered to yourself a truth you didn't dare voice aloud. Even his silence feels louder than my voice. You had seen it again earlier that day. One of his lieutenants reported late. He didn't yell, didn't curse, he simply looked at the man. That gaze alone was enough to reduce the hardened fire to stuttering apologizes. You shivered at the memory, your fingers curling into the fabric of your dress. He doesn't need fists to break people. His eyes are enough. If he can make them tremble, what am I supposed to do? You lay down on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The fear gnawed at you, but Something else, something colder. It wasn't just the anger you dreaded. It was being unseen, being nothing more than a name on a contract, a wife only on paper. You bite your lip, your voice cracking as you whisper to the empty room. In this house full of people, why do I feel so invisible? The days leading up to that night were heavy as though the mansion itself was holding its breath. Every evening, you found yourself waiting for him. It was a foolish hope, but a hope nonetheless that maybe one day he would look at you the way husbands were supposed to, with warmth instead of frost. So when you hear the familiar rumble of his black car pulling into the driveway, your head quickens. You smoothed down your dress, brushed a loose strand of hair from your face, and stood by the door. The door swung open. Jungkook stepped in, tall and sharp, in his black suit. His aura filling the entire hall, his eyes were glued to the phone in his hand, his expression unreadable. You offered him a soft smile, your voice carrying a gentleness you knew he rarely returned. Welcome home, Jungkook. For a fleeting moment, you waited for the smallest acknowledgement, even a glance. But he brushed past you as though you were not even standing there, his calling lingering long after his footsteps faded upstairs. Your smile wavered, slipping away. The maids averted their eyes as if they had witnessed something private, something too painful. Another night, you tried again. Dinner was served, and you waited at the long table, carefully pouring him a glass of water. Then he arrived. You must be tired, eat something, hmm? He didn't look at you. Instead, he set his gun on the table beside his plate, a silent reminder of who he was, of the world he lived in. He took the glass, drank without a word, and began to eat. You sat across from him, your hands twisting in your lap. Every word you wanted to say turned to dust on your tongue. Later, one rainy evening, you gathered your courage once more. He came in late, exhaustion shadowing his face. You approached cautiously, holding out a dry towel. You will catch a cold if you don't dry off. Jungkook stopped, eyes lifting just briefly to yours, but there was no softness in them, only a weary indifference. He took the towel, brushed past you, and muttered under his breath, "Don't concern yourself with things that don't matter." The words hit harder than a shout. He wasn't cruel, just detached, as if you were nothing more than an object occupying space in his house. You stood frozen in the hallway, staring at his retreating figure. Slowly, your eyes dropped to the floor, the sting of his indifference tightening around your chest. Every little moment chipped away at you, piece by piece, his silence, his coldness, his distance. You found yourself walking on eggshells, careful with every step, every word, as if one wrong move might finally unleash the storm you feared most. And deep inside, you wondered how much more invisible you could become before you disappeared entirely. The mentioned clock struck past midnight when Jungkook finally returned. The door slammed shut behind him, the sound echoing like thunder. His shoulders were tense, his hair slightly disheveled, and exhaustion carved deep into his sharp features. Tonight he had been out dealing with traitors, blood, and betrayal, weighing heavily on his mind. He loosened his tie, eyes sharp as he moved through the hall. The staff immediately straightened, fear crawling through their veins. He hated mistakes, and tonight he was in no mood for one. But fate was merciless. As he entered his private study, his gaze fell on the desk. Wine was spilled across a stack of papers. The deep red playing to the papers that carried weeks of sensitive information. His expensive suit jacket, the one he had worn to a crucial meeting, was carelessly draped on the chair, stained at the cuff. The air grew heavy, Jungkook's jaw tightened, his aura darkening into something dangerous. His tired mind didn't stop to search for explanations. To him, there was only one person who could have been here. His cold eye snapped to you, standing by the doorway with a tray of tea you had been intending to leave for him. Chunguk stormed across the room, the force of his presence making your knees weaken. What the hell is this? You blinked, started looking at the mess on the desk. Your lips parted, but no words came out fast enough. Chunguk's voice rose, sharp as a whip. Do you know how long I have been working on those files? Weeks, wine, weeks. Your hands trembled as you tried to explain. I didn't. But his anger was a storm already unleashed. He grabbed the stained jacket, throwing it across the room. Is this your idea of a joke? Do you enjoy making a fool out of me? Your eyes widened, tears welling, but before you could defend yourself further, his hand came down across your cheek. The sound of a slap echoed in the steady, sharp, and merciless. You staggered back, your palm flying to your face, your skin burning where his hand had struck. Tears spilled instantly, your vision blurring, but he wasn't finished. Jungkook's voice dropped lower, colder, each word laced with venom. Tariq, I regret ever letting you step into my house. You bring nothing but chaos. Your lips quivered, your breath shaky as you whispered almost inaudible. I didn't do it, but he cut you off with a glare so sharp silenced the room. Save your lives, I don't have the patience for your games. Your chest half trembling from head to toe, you clutched the tray against you like a fragile shield, but nothing could protect you from the sting of his words. Without another word, you turned and ran, your footsteps echoing down the hall. You pressed your hand against your burning cheek, tears streaming freely now. The walls of the mansion blurred as you stumbled to your room, shutting the door with trembling hands. Collapsing onto the floor, you buried your face in your palms, sobs shaking through your body. Why does he hate me so much? I didn't even, it wasn't me. Your voice cracked, the sound of your pain muffled by the pillow you clung to, and in that moment, the golden cage you lived in felt colder than ever. The mansion was silent, save for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Jungkook sat in his study, his fingers pressed to his temples, trying to push away the burning image of your tear-streaked face. The sting of his hand still lingered on his palm, and for once it didn't feel like power, it felt like poison. The door creaked open, and one of the maids stepped in hesitantly, her head bowed so low her hair covered her face. Master, Chokook's eyes flicked up, sharp and unreadable. Speak quickly. Her hands twisted in her apron, her voice trembling. The files, the wine, it was me. I was cleaning the study earlier and I slipped. I spilled it. It wasn't madam. The air in the room thickened. Jungkook's jaw flexed, his stare darkening as the weight of her words settled in. What did you just say? The maid dropped to her knees, her whole body shaking. It was my fault. I should have said something earlier, but I was scared. I was afraid you would punish me, so I stayed quiet. But madam, she didn't deserve what happened. For the first time in years, Jungkook was silent, not because he chose to be, but because words refused to form. His chest tightened, the memory of a broken whisper clawing at him. He clenched his fists, his pride roaring against the guilt tearing through him. He should have spoken the moment it happened. The maid flinched, lowering her head further. Forgive me, master, please forgive me. But Jungkook wasn't angry at her. He wasn't even angry at the mistake. He was angry at himself, at the monster he had become in your eyes. Hours passed before he moved. The house had gone quiet, and with it came the faintest sound that clawed at his soul, your muffled sobs. He stood outside your door, his hands hovering near the handle but frozen by the weight of his own pride. He didn't beg, he didn't apologize. That was not who Jungkook was. He was a man who commanded armies, who brought men to their knees with a glare. How could he now humble himself before you? And yet, your broken voice leaked through the door, fragile and devastating. Why does he hate me so much? I didn't even do anything. I really try, but he will never see me. Never. Jungkook's throat constricted. He pressed his fist to the door, his jaw trembling in a way it never had in front of anyone else. What have I done? He closed his eyes, listening as your sobs shook the silence, every broken word slicing through the armor he had built over the years. For the first time, the cold mafia boss who could face death without flinching felt powerless. Because he had wounded the only person who had never once was a weapon against him. He wanted to enter, to hold you, to tell you the truth, but his ego chained him in place. Whispering that apologizes were weakness, yet as a voice cracked again, whispering words that tore at his chest. If I'm such a burden, why did he marry me at all? Something inside him shattered. Jungkook lifted his hand to the door again, this time trembling as though he could hold himself back no longer. His pride was his prison, but tonight your tears were the key that could break it. The following days were strange. The house was still locked in silence, but something in Jungkook's presence had shifted. He was no longer erupting with anger or cold dismissal. Instead, there were small, clumsy gestures, unspoken apologizes that his pride refused to voice. The first time you found a tray of food outside your door, it wasn't prepared by the maids, it was him. He recognized the effort in the way the rice was unevenly placed, the soup not as perfect as the chefs would have made it. Still, you didn't touch it. Another night, when exhaustion claimed you on the couch, you woke briefly to find a blanket draped over your body. The scent of his calling lingered on it, and though you knew it had been him, you pretended not to notice. He never said a word, you never thanked him, because silent gestures could not erase the sting of a slap, nor the venom of words that still echoed in your chest. Days bled into nights, his guilt festering like an unhealed wound. He would stand outside your door, hand on the knob, but retreat every time he wanted to beg. But the voice of his pride was louder until it wasn't. One evening, you stepped into the study to retrieve a book you froze in the doorway. Jungkook was there, but not as you had seen him. He was on the floor, his back against the desk, his head in his hands, his broad shoulders trembled, braids uneven. For the first time, the man who made the word bow was breaking. You whispered, cautious. Jungkook, his head snapped up, eyes red rimmed, raw. He let out a shaky laugh that wasn't laughter at all. I never thought I would live to see the day when I would fall apart like this. He dragged a hand down his face, his voice cracking. I hurt you. I swore I would protect you, and instead I became the monster you needed protection from. You stayed silent, your throat tight, but your silence urged him to continue. He shifted closer on his knees, his pride strapped bare. I was wrong, Wine, about the files about you. I don't expect you to forgive me easily. I don't deserve it, but please. His voice broke, his head bowing low, his hands gripping the hem of your dress as if answering himself. Don't look at me like I'm a stranger you fear. Hate me if you must, but don't shut me out completely. Tears stung your eyes, but the wound was still raw. You stepped back, shaking your head. Do you think sorry can erase everything? Do you think I can forget the way you looked at me as if I was nothing? Your words cut deeper than the slap. Chungkook, you made me believe I worthless. His expression twisted in anguish. He reached for you, but you pulled away. You don't get forgiveness that easily, not from me. The silence after your words was stiffening, but instead of anger, he sank lower, resting his forehead against the floor, his body trembling. Hours later, when you returned to check on him, he was still there on the floor, silent tears streaming down his face. His pride, the fortress that had made him untouchable, lay in ruins around him. I don't know how to love, right? I only know how to fight, how to command, how to destroy. But with you, I want to learn. I'm begging you, wine, teach me, or I'll lose the only thing I never wanted to lose. The sight shattered you. The cold mafia boss, the man who never bowed to anyone, was crying at your feet, stripped of everything but raw desperation. Slowly you knelt before him, cupping his damp cheek in your trembling hand. I don't forgive you because of your tears, Jungkook. I forgive you because, despite everything, my heart still chooses you. His breath hitched, his hands gripping yours as if afraid you would vanish. Relief and sorrow flooded his eyes at once. For the first time, the silence between you wasn't suffocating, it was healing.